Ja Morant causing a stir in the NBA once again. Does the commissioner have a right to be concerned, or are we blowing this out of proportion? Let's talk about it. So once again, Ja Morant finds himself at the center of controversy in the NBA when it comes to guns. To recap, before we get into the latest infraction, Ja Morant in March of 2023 was suspended 8 games without pay for displaying a firearm on an Instagram live video while intoxicated at a nightclub. Then in May 2023, he was suspended an additional 25 games for posing with a firearm again on Instagram Live, this time in a car. Fast forward to April 2025, so within the last week, Ja Morant displayed finger guns in a game that the Grizzlies ended up winning as a means of celebration. The league immediately announced that they would look into it, and they later issued a warning to Morant. Morant responded by going to social media and saying, Ja this, Ja that, as if he's being targeted for something unfairly. Then, in the following game, 2 nights later, Ja Morant displayed the finger gun gesture again, saying that he's well aware of the criticism and is kind of used to it and doesn't care anymore. The league later fined him $75,000. The prevailing thing that I've seen online from NBA fans is that the finger gun celebration wasn't a problem until Ja Morant did it. And I think they're focusing on the wrong thing here. Do I think in light of this that the finger gun celebration should be made illegal? Maybe. But again, I think if you're focusing on the fact that nobody else gets punished for that kind of celebration, you're focusing on the wrong thing. The issue here, and I'll give another example in a second, but the issue here with me, the thing that I think about, putting away the celebration part of it for just a second, is this is Ja Morant, who has, as we've gone over, had a history of disciplinary action involving firearms, involving actual firearms. So, what I think the NBA is reacting to is that this is not about a celebration. This is about a warning sign from something he's already been disciplined for. Do I think it's a bit of an overreaction? Yeah, it's a celebration. He didn't pull out a gun in the arena. But, and here's the example that I'll use. If, let's say for example, if Zach LaVine elbowed somebody in the face going for a rebound, or if he stepped on somebody's foot after getting up from a loose ball, the NBA would probably send him a letter. Be like, hey, don't do that again. If Draymond Green did that exact thing, the reaction would be different. Because Draymond Green has a history with those kind of actions. Draymond Green has been punished and fined and suspended for actions just like this. Now, is Ja Morant using the finger gun celebration the same thing as showing a firearm on social media? No. But as I mentioned, I do believe that because Ja Morant is aware of his past, and because Ja Morant knows the NBA is watching him a little bit closer than other players, the same way they do with Draymond Green when it comes to physicality, that they're going to have a different reaction when Ja Morant does a gun-related celebration versus Chet Holmgren did the same celebration, or LeBron did the same celebration. Because Ja Morant has a history with actual firearms. And for him to do it a second time as a screw you to the NBA league office, as I've heard brought up on ESPN and other networks this week, Commissioner Adam Silver considers himself to be pretty fair when it comes to these kinds of things. There are people that when it came to Draymond Green's suspensions thought it should have been a little bit more. Some thought it should have been less, but there were many that thought he should be suspended more because some of his actions more recently have been more obvious that he was doing it on purpose. But to go back to that example, but when you purposely show up the league, when you purposely fire back at the league, that's a different story. I don't think Adam Silver is too happy with being targeted like that. And I do think he's a pretty fair commissioner. But again, to me, this isn't about the gun celebration. This is about, like I mentioned with the Draymond Green example, when it comes to certain types of antics, the NBA looks closer at Draymond Green than they do other players that do those same things because of the history Draymond has with those kind of antics. It's the same type of thing for Ja Morant. He's got a history of disciplinary actions and reckless behavior when it comes to firearms. So when the NBA tunes into a weeknight regular season basketball game and sees that same player doing a gun-related taunt to another player, it triggers something different when it comes to reactions to that decision. Do I think it's a little bit of an overreaction for an in-game celebration that most of the league uses? Yes. But do I think there's some merit to saying we can't just ignore this because this is something related to something we've seen from him multiple times? Yes. And then him doing it a second time, that's a different issue. Because when we were dealing with, and I say we because I talked about it on this channel, when he got suspended in 2023, when analysts and podcasters like myself and fans, when we were watching him go through that, many of us were concerned for him. And Stephen A. Smith had a particularly heartfelt reaction, urging him to seek help if he needed it, urging him to be careful, to take care of himself. We were all more concerned for Ja Morant, the person, than the athlete. We didn't want to see him throw away a promising career because of reckless behavior. That was genuine. And so for this to come up again, in a different way, mind you, but for this to come up again and be an issue again, and then for him to blatantly ignore it and do it again almost as a taunt to the league, to me, and I'm probably going to get hammered for this in the comments, but this is just my honest opinion. There are some people, and I'm not just talking about athletes, and maybe this isn't the case with Ja Morant, but there are some people who, when fame and money and notoriety is thrust upon them, they are not mature enough to handle it. And the reality of this is, and I'm not saying that's for sure what's happening with Ja Morant, but the reality of this is that Ja Morant is still just 25 years old. He's been in the league for a while. That's easy to forget. He's still only 25 years old. Some people aren't mature enough yet to handle the spotlight. And this particular thing, specifically the second gun celebration after he'd been warned, and then the reaction where he says, Ja this, Ja that, they're all talking about me, and then saying he doesn't care. It shows a lack of awareness and a lack of maturity for the seriousness with which the NBA is taking his behavior when it comes to the gun-related things. Again, this was a harmless celebration for 99% of the league. And again, I think there was a bit of an overreaction for the celebration that most of the league does. But when you have a history, you get treated differently. That's all there is to this, in my opinion, is Ja Morant has disciplinary issues when it comes to firearms. And that's what the NBA was reacting to, not a celebration. Could they outlaw any celebration that involves pointing fingers at other players? They could. I think that would infringe a little bit on the freedom of the player, but we saw it in the NFL for a while where they outlawed celebration because they viewed it as taunting. But when it's causing a stir because a player with a history of gun-related disciplinary action does it. I think it's time to say maybe we just shouldn't do it. Maybe that celebration shouldn't be allowed. Because there are people, as I said, that view this as it's just a celebration. It's not a problem until Ja does it. That's because Ja is on a different level when it comes to that particular celebration. It's like if Draymond Green celebrated by doing this, it would be a little bit different for him as opposed to other players in the league, because he's got a history of physical contact with other players that goes above and beyond. So his standard is he's held to a different standard than other players when it comes to that specific incident. You can decide for yourself if that's fair, but it's just the way it is. Let me know in the comments if you think the NBA is overreacting to Ja Morant's gun celebration in-game, if Ja Morant was wrong for doing it the second time. There are so many elements to this than it just being an in-game celebration. Let me know what you think in the comments. And this has been Empire Sports Talk. I am Roman Gennaro, and I'll see you on the next one.